Welcome to War Room Impeachment, episode 137. We're live from Capitol Hill, only yards away from where the president's defense team is working right now on the defense of President Trump, Donald J. Trump, the third president in American history to be impeached, the third impeachment trial, Monday, the 27th of January, the year of our Lord 2020. And Pam Bondi, the former Attorney General of the great state of Florida, is now throwing down on putting the Bidens on trial. We got Joe Biden and his sidekick, Hunter Biden, and Pam Bondi is, as we say down south, stripping the bark off them.
Now, and Pam's doing a good job. She's laying out a very methodical case about the corruption going on in Ukraine, why we need to continue looking into this. And I think if we're going to get into this a little bit on the show here, if we do head toward witnesses, why Joe Biden should definitely be heading to D.C. to plan on testifying. And Hunter Biden, it's a 39-hour drive from the Hollywood Hills.
Well, hold it. It's not going to be a Porsche. Is Hunter, here's the question. Is Hunter, with the inquiring minds want to know, will Hunter stop by Arkansas to pick up the baby mama? He just bring his wife of 3 weeks or 4 weeks?
I think he's going to.
Didn't he meet a girl and got married overnight? Hey, not that not that I haven't been there, done that, but no. Does he stop in Arkansas?
I don't think so.
You think he comes straight through? It's 39 hours you drive straight. He's not driving a Porsche. It'd be a minivan.
Yeah. No, he'll
stay with the Porsche.
He'll fly. But he can't fly on Air Force 2. That's just for going to China.
Does he to pick up $8.50 checks?
Go pick up some cash.
God bless Pam Bondi. Finally, I want to talk to you about the sequence. By the way, we're going to have a couple of powerhouse lawyers try to call in. They're doing TV all over. We've made David Rifkin a star now. He's over at PBS doing NewsHour. Exactly on Judge Ken Starr's open today. Let's walk through before we get into the Bolton and all that. What did you think of the sequencing of events? How'd you like that? The sequencing and how we went through today.
Yeah, it was, we have not seen the fire and brimstone at any point yet so far. I think that's probably the folks on the Trump team probably saw the headlines that they got, the positive headlines on Sunday, said, look, we just need to go and recreate this again, and we're going to get through this and be in pretty good shape. So Patrick Philbin walked through a very... and when I say methodical, that's, look.
But Philbin came in after, it started really with Judge Starr, didn't it?
Yeah, had Judge Starr there, so we did not see Dershowitz this morning.
Why do you start with Starr? And it was a lecture.
It was a lecture.
I love history. I'm not a lawyer, but I love the history of it. I can get in, I can listen to a guy like Starr for a long time. But that's not the you somebody told me you're starting with the paper chase instead of Matlock.
It didn't hurt us, but I didn't see how the Starr speech today helped.
Let's go to, I think we've got actually David Rifkin is on the phone. Is that correct, Fish?
Yep, indeed.
Hey, David, how you doing? I got Jason Miller, Steve Bannon here on War Impeachment, the evening show. Can you walk us through, we were just talking, of course, we're not lawyers, so walk us through Judge Starr's, the content of what he walked through, and we'll talk about the style in a second.
It was quite a bit of a historical presentation. 90% history, with a little bit of the discussion of a constitutional metes and bounds of impeachment. I frankly think, and again, I have high regard for Judge Starr and consider him a good friend. I did not quite understand why so much time was spent on it. Look, there are two audiences here. I would have done it, but would not have devoted that much time. There are two audiences here, gentlemen. One is the Senate, and the second is the Court of Public Opinion. I think for the Court of Public Opinion, it would have been better to compress it in a very short presentation about the fact that there's an accelerating tempo of abuse of impeachments, particularly it bears upon the presidents. If you wanted to link it to independent counsel statute, which is plausible, go for it. So I don't think it played that well to the Court of Public Opinion. The senators, I don't know if there's a single senator who was swayed by this. So good presentation. Well, it's the best presentation, the one appropriate for the process that's unfolding here. respectfully, I don't think so. But it certainly didn't harm anything.
Yeah, and David, I had a very similar take just before you jumped on. I said the same thing, that it wasn't any harm that was done, but it seemed a little bit sleepy. There wasn't anything, much pizzazz to it. Here's where I think the other challenge, we talk about the environmental things. Everyone today is talking about John Bolton, Book Deal Bolton, as we named him back in episode 23 on November 11th, just a day and a half after that story came out, that Monday right after the weekend. So Book Deal Bolton is what everyone wants to talk about. And then there's some anticipation about what Pam Bondi just got to a few minutes ago, which was the Biden and the Burisma and the Where's Hunter, that narrative. And I think that nobody was looking for what Starr was serving up earlier.
Right. Well, in some sense, most things were prepared in advance. So, how agile can you be with so many players and so many moving parts? Let me tell you what I think is a good thing about Bolton, and I think it's very important for you to emphasize this, because I certainly don't see it in the media. At best, it would, John Bolton, and look, I like Bolton. I've known him for many years. I don't think he is, assume what has been reported is correct, that President Trump had this conversation with him. All it tells you is how the interagency process, or this administration's version of interagency process, has unfolded, right? He's not talking about any conversation that he was present during which Trump spoke with Ukrainians. He's talking about what the president told him. The president told certain things to other advisors, and other advisors, including Esper and Pompeo and Bolton, told certain things to him. This is even more attenuated than trying to impeach the president under the parity of high crime and misdemeanor definition for something he said to Ukraine. And by the way, my view, as you know, has been for a long time, for months, that even if President Trump were to absolutely tie, which he did not, the pause on the Ukrainian aid delivery, not cessation, but pause, to a request to investigate specific instances of what he believed to be Ukrainian corruption, even that would not be a high crime misdemeanor. But here, what Bolton can testify, if he ever were to testify, would not even be that. It's a conversation between him and the president, which is one step removed. So we're going to be saying that the president is expressing a particular view to his senior advisor, but in the end of the day, gentlemen, did not materialize, because the aid was not paused beyond September, despite the Ukrainian failure to really move forward with these investigations. That is an impeachable offense? It cannot possibly be true. It's absurd. So there's no magic to obtaining Bolton's testimony on one hand. On the other hand, there are all the reasons not to go for it. The fact that it would implicate against the separation of powers, it would have to be litigated, it would cause delays by not of weeks, of months, and it would set a horrible precedent of the Senate, in fact, cleaning up the House's case, which really belongs to the House. They are the prosecutors here. They should do, halfway decent impeachment inquiry, which they did not. So when you balance those two things, you're not going to get anything that is at all dispositive from Bolton, assuming that what's been reported is indeed what he's going to say. And on the other hand, he always other powerful imperatives. So it shall not be done, and I hope it would not be done.
Are you arguing, David, that even if the president wanted to have Bolton and said, "Hey, I don't care what this guy's got to say," you think he owes it to the office of the president that they have to basically call executive privilege to then go to court and argue this out as a separation of powers issue? That really, to protect the office, you've got to do that?
Of course, and I hope Bolton, who's not only a foreign policy wonk, but a lawyer, not a litigator, but a pretty decent lawyer, would respect that. Look, we're talking about a small but very compelling sliver of overall privileges, a range of privileges that are available to the executive branch, the so-called immediate advisor privilege that's been asserted continuously since 1970s, because it was first asserted in OC opinion by then young William Rehnquist, before he got on the court, who was the head of Office of Legal Counsel, asserted continuously by every single president, Republican and Democrat, since that time. So we're not talking about, GS-15s or assistant secretaries, or deputy assistant secretaries, office workers. We're talking about 5 or 6 people who are, quote, immediate advisors of a president, who interact with him every day. I believe if this matter was litigated, that it would be upheld, and it was never definitively litigated because there's always been accommodation on both sides. It would be upheld by the Supreme Court. If you think about it, and I'm slightly paraphrasing young William Rehnquist's opinion, these people are the president's alter ego. If you can compel them to appear, that's tantamount to compelling the president to appear. And that is fundamentally untenable. That would make the president, instead of being a head of a coordinate branch, a head of an interior branch. So I don't care to the extent the Constitution matters here, and it matters enormously. If Bolton had to offer the most helpful, the most supportive testimony proving the president's case that he's done nothing wrong, if it were up to me, I would still advocate in favor of assertion of privilege. By the way, one thing that came loud and clear here, the president has been urged to assert the privilege by the Department of Justice. Okay, so it is not his privilege; it's the privilege of office of a presidency. Yeah. And one thing that every president is supposed to do if he takes the Constitution seriously, he should not leave an office worse when he found it. So there's a real conundrum here. And I hope the senators who are going to vote on the witness request would look at the constitutional equities in addition to just measuring the political impact, particularly senators in close races. Look, I'm not naive, I get it. What the Democrats are going to make out of their alleged failure to seek truth. By the way, one thing that sickens me is this constant repetition of, well, if you want to know the truth, we should get this. The privilege doesn't matter. Gentlemen, every single privilege known in American law, be it spousal privilege, attorney-client privilege, executive privilege, the formidable congressional privileges, the so-called speech and debate clause, right? Doctor-patient privilege. All those privileges are designed to do what? To prevent the disclosure of some information, which may well be very probative. Why do those privileges exist? They don't exist for nefarious purposes. They exist in order to give fulsome protection to these kinds of relationships that are vital to our functioning as a democratic society, as a constitutional republic. So please stop giving me, it's a family show, I'm not going to use the bad word, but stop giving this garbage about how if you're asserting the privilege, you are impairing the discovery of truth.
Yeah, and David, if you did say something, if you did use some bad language, don't worry, John Fredericks would be the one who'd pick up the fine. Sorry, just a little heckle to our boy John.
No, it just makes me mad. It's so specious. And the other thing, frankly, that is specious, the Democrats have spent, and I don't blame them for it, well, not just Democrats, but people who care about civil rights and individual liberty, the way ACLU used to be, emphasize that process is vital to a function of democracy. But process is about the substance. It's not something that's inferior. How many times have you heard in the last few weeks from Nadler and Schiff, well, the only reason Republicans are arguing about the process is because they don't want to have arguments on the merits. That is so dangerous if that were... I mean, look, the president has done nothing wrong, but we let people go free who've done bad things. You know, there's something called, Fourth Amendment that governs reasonable searches and seizures. We let people whose place has been searched by a lawful warrant go free if you find drugs and dead bodies in their apartments and houses. Why? Because it's vital to our ability to function as a democracy. So I'm getting enormously angry, both as a lawyer and as an American, about this newfound disdain for privileges and procedures and due process. Full stop.
So, David, I want to play devil's advocate here and say that I would like to see John Bolton testify. And I'll tell you why. Number one, I don't think he has anything. Adam Schiff had a very telling statement earlier this morning on CNN's New Day where he said it's not about the manuscript, it's about his notes. Adam Schiff is already positioning away from it. But if you look at the story, the way it's worded, the way this is all put together, try to game book sales, I mean, just magically, the New York Times story comes out last night, and Amazon somehow has the pre-order link that goes live right after the story comes out. Clearly, they're gaming this thing here. But when you have someone like a John Bolton come out and make these attacks, I think, and first of all, he has no intention to ever want to testify. He just wants to play this game to try to juice book sales. I want to see him get cross-examined. I want to see him get crossed up so we can snuff out more of these, showing people the personal animosity and the venom and essentially the scorned former employee who wants to go at this. I don't think we have anything to fear with a John Bolton. And I think this would be the most effective way to go and combat this. Now, look, that might get us off topic here, but it just goes to show just the absolute naked case the Democrats have, that they just don't have anything here. There's no there. So purely from the media value of this, I mean, and there's a reason why Democrats didn't go and subpoena him. Now, they're, of course, going to say, because we knew that executive privilege would be invoked and it'd be a months-long battle in the courts. But what are your thoughts on that, David, that there's a media and messaging value to going through and fully exonerating President Trump by forcing Bolton to testify?
Look, I hate to disagree with you, but first of all, you're right in terms of the pragmatic, practical impact of having Bolton testify. Although, look, not to spend too much time on it, I frankly blame Bolton a lot less than the people. I've seen a statement released by his lawyer, or in interest of full disclosure, is a good friend of mine, Chuck Cooper, that says that, I just want basically, I'm paraphrasing, the world to know that we send the manuscript to the NSC for pre-publication review, and that's where it leaked from. Okay, so let's just pause for 2 seconds and talk about people who leaked it at the strategic time. It was not John Bolton, I'm sure, who did it, or anybody associated with him. All right, but that's an aside. So let's say that in the mind of some American people who feel that if no witnesses are produced, that would be able to attest to the president's state of mind. Again, state of mind not as communicated, which is a very important point, I'm repeating myself, to the Ukrainians, because that's the House manager's theory. No, a state of mind is communicated to somebody in the heat of interagency discourse. Because the president talks to his advisors in their agency. Let's assume it's wonderful. It convinced a portion of the American electorate that it was indeed a perfect process. My fear is, not fear, my certainty is that would harm the Constitution. There are two agendas here, unfortunately, and in this respect, they're a little bit at cross purposes. Do we care about as robustly exonerating President Trump as possible, even if it causes some serious constitutional damage? Because, look, a great deal in a separation of power space is based upon actual practices. Every time there's a separation of powers case, in addition to looking at the constitutional language, in addition to looking at the Federalist Papers and all the other founding era materials, the courts look at what has actually happened. Okay? So here, if Bolton were allowed to testify in order to exonerate the president, a bad precedent would be set. And
Wow.
that grieves me, because separation of powers is a vital element,
Wow.
not to protect some alleged king, a la Nadler, or a dictator.
So, Dave, let me just push back on one point here, because this is an important conversation. There's a very good chance we're going to end up with witnesses. So I want to have it out here with you, who's one of the smartest guys that we've had on the show. Are we not already? Remember back in the medieval, not medieval times, but back in the 1600s and such, 1500s, when they had the maps just with the dragon at the end of the map because they didn't know what else was out there at the end of the ocean.
The dragons, yes.
Yeah, aren't we basically out past the dragons now as far as constitutionality and precedents and what this means for the future of the country? Aren't we already so far past where anyone's ever going to go, and the Democrats have so completely trampled over the Constitution by politicizing impeachment that may be, because everything you're saying is spot on. I agree with you. It's terrible precedent. But this entire impeachment witch hunt is terrible precedent. Is there such thing anymore of trying to defend precedent for future presidencies when
that is the most right? That is the most compelling criticism, and I understand where you're coming from. I cannot dismiss it out of hand. But let me say this: I have repeatedly argued on this show and in 3 different Wall Street Journal op-eds in the last 2.5 months that what is utterly needed here is not a simple vindication of a president, as important as it is in the form of rejecting the articles of impeachment, but a robust Senate repudiation, even by a simple majority, of the entire impeachment approach displayed by the House, both on the process and on the substance, meaning the definition of what is a high crime and misdemeanor. That's the so-called corrupt motive theory of high crime and misdemeanor. If that were to happen, there would be some pushback from the deconstruction and destruction, to use a simpler word, of a constitution. Now, would it cure all the damage? Like anything? Look, God forbid, a horrible analogy, but the Constitution got cancer here. The question is, how decisively can this cancer be eradicated? Your point to me is basically it's incurable. So instead of worrying about eradicating it, let's focus on the political dynamics. They've done it to us, so let's do it to them, which is, by the way, what happened, if you remember Ken Starr's presentation, what happened with the independent counsel statute, because it hurt Republicans and then it hurt the Democrats. And then there was a bipartisan consensus that they're just not going to be done. So I don't know. It is a difficult question. But my hope is that having the Senate reject it, now you can say, okay, reject in what way? My suggestion is to have a Senate resolution that will be voted upon in addition to the articles that basically would say that we repudiate as unconstitutional and utterly improper.
You're saying you want to censure. You essentially, they're talking about censuring Trump maybe as a thing. You're saying you're arguing there should be a separate, besides the repudiation of the two articles, you think an additional censure against Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, and the House of Representatives is necessary.
Correct. It's actually a very good way to put it. Right. I call it repudiation, but yes, because it would have no impact other than, a symbolic moral impact. It's not legislation, obviously. Yes, censure of what the House Democrats have done. It doesn't have to be personalized.
David, we got to jump. David's a senior partner at Baker Hostetler. You're on PBS NewsHour tonight, sir. I take it.
Yep.
Okay, everybody can see David. He's upgraded from War Room Impeachment to the PBS.
He's big time now.
NewsHour.
Just a different format, gentlemen. Okay.
We appreciate that. David Rifkin, thanks for coming on. We got you at the last second here on these arguments. Okay, David Rifkin, who's we'll have them all up on the Wall Street Journal, his amazing op-eds, analysis, one of the top constitutional lawyers in town, and has been absolutely brilliant and dead spot on. We're going to take a short break. Episode 137, Jason Miller, Stephen K. Bannon. We'll be back in a moment.
War Room Impeachment. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
It's Monday, the 27th of January, the year of our Lord 2020, episode 137. John Fredericks Radio Network, Salem Broadcast Radio Network, America's Voice, the premium platform for all things Trump. They're going to be doing the rallies this week, and also Newsmax TV. I want to go back to the John Bolton of it all. And one of the things with Mitch McConnell, I think was buried down in one of the CNN reports that I was able to grab earlier in the day, the word malpractice came out. And this was in an article about Lindsey Graham and Senator McConnell. They were not, let's say this, they were not particularly happy.
Yeah, they weren't psyched.
They weren't psyched that they found out about the book in the review at the NSC on about the fifth paragraph of Maggie Haberman's story. You're a pro in this. That's not what you want to do, right?
No, not especially after as good of a day as we had on Saturday. Everything's moving in Trump's direction. And to have this, no, that's not what you want at all. So some interesting things. So John Eisenberg, the lead counsel at the NSC.
The John Eisenberg is the lawyer at the White House counsel's office that focuses on the NSC. So he's White House counsel, but he is the senior lawyer. He's like the White House counsel for the NSC.
And so a source very close to John Eisenberg, as in John Eisenberg, told the Wall Street Journal that he is not part of the review team and had not seen the manuscript himself. So that makes
Brother Eisenberg trying to avoid some shrapnel here.
Yes. And we also have an op-ed out from Bolton's former chief of staff, Fred Fleitz, distancing himself from all of this.
Now, Fred's a good man. He's going to be on Laura Ingraham tonight. Everybody, I think there's an exclusive interview with Laura Ingraham tonight. That would be at 10 o'clock on Fox. Fred Fleit's a good man. But, you are Bolton's deputy. He's your partner forever. You're his deputy. I mean, you don't see the notes. He never mentions this to you. I'm not.
Because Bolton was clearly working on the book while he was at the White House.
This is the key point. And let's go back to, this morning's show, and this is why it's so great having Jason on. He walked through kind of the way the world works from everything. And I might add, because I got to brag on him, the Bolton book was announced on November 9th in the evening as part of the Friday night dump, but let's drive the news cycle for the weekend. On the 11th, I think you did the Sunday show. And on the 11th, you came in in the 11th, you came, it was episode 23. You came in on 11 November and actually for the first time said book deal Bolton. And it wasn't some snarky phrase, although it's got a certain rhythm to it. You were saying that this book, right, is going to be a big deal. So every time you referred to him, it was book deal Bolton. Now, look, I thought we were talking about a book in the summer or in the fall for the campaign. It's one of those October surprises that get dumped in August. It comes out last night to drive the news cycle with the two killers, Maggie Haberman and Schmidt, right? Schmidt was the guy. Schmidt was essentially the communication director of the Mueller investigation, right? That place was sealed high and tight. Every leak that came out, anything that was weaponized, came through Schmidt, right?
And he and Maggie were both part of that Pulitzer Prize winning team.
They were Pulitzer Prize winning, right, for all this stuff. That got there for a reason. And you walk through, if the book, last night on Amazon, they come up with the web page. You can now pre-order the book, okay? It's coming out on March 17th, Ep137, Bolton, right around the Ides of March. But that book is in a warehouse somewhere, right, or being shipped to a warehouse today, all bound with the cover pull quotes and all that. Okay, that means that this book was in some sort of draft form when he left the White House. That's how you got the $3 million deal. Now, take our audience through what happened today, because we called out collectively Javelin, the literary agent, by the way, the literary agent for Comey, the literary agent for my favorite, Anonymous, right? Anonymous, and the book agent now for John Bolton. Also, Matt Latimer's got a history. He wrote an expose of his time at the Bush White House, right? But Simon & Schuster, Javelin, and Chuck Cooper, who's the lawyer for Bolton, what did they say today? They came back. They got back in our grill.
They did. They came back. So here's the statement. I'm going to blow this up. I'll read the statement uninterrupted here. Ambassador John Bolton, Simon & Schuster, and Javelin Literary categorically state that there was absolutely no coordination with the New York Times or anyone else regarding the appearance of information about his book, The Room Where It Happened, at online booksellers. Any assertion to the contrary is unfounded speculation. So I'm throwing the challenge flag. I'm saying that this is BS. And let me go and walk you through it here.
Okay.
What they don't say in this statement is that we didn't talk to Maggie Haberman or Michael Schmidt to be the other source confirming what was in there. What they didn't say is that we did not tee this up with Amazon to magically have the book pre-order link ready to go after the story pops on a Sunday night. Are you kidding me?
Hold it. A Sunday night on the eve of his defense. Remember, Saturday was a highlight reel, and they saw it went better from the lips of Jay Sekulow. It's like a movie trailer, is what he said. I called it an overture to an opera. We're going to hit a few themes, throw some things out there, and tee up how we're going to come in. And we may only use the first day. So Monday's everything. So you're telling me on the eve of the President of the United States defense, the first time for really years, because he didn't get a defense in Mueller, right? He never got a defense in the Pelosi thing, as in all that in the Star Chamber. As the lawyer Philbin walked through the day, he never got due process ever. So for the first time, he's going to have more than a highlight reel. His attorney's going to step up, and they're going to, you're going to have Dershowitz, you're going to have Starr, you're going to have Pam Bondi, you're going to have Pat Cipollone, you're going to have them all, right? So on the eve of that, you're telling me that John Bolton, this big reveal that has the city in a meltdown, plus Amazon comes up with the book for the pre-order, right? And they announce it's March 17th, and it's a page one, and I might refer to from the Pulitzer Prize winning team, it's page one. Upper right hand, money to Ukraine tied to inquiries. Bolton book says that's all just circumstance, right? What the quote is, they didn't coordinate, they didn't.
Yeah, it's real technical here, where there is absolutely no coordination with the New York Times or anyone else regarding the appearance of information about his book, The Room Where It Happened, at online booksellers. Any assertion to the contrary is unfounded speculation.
Okay, we're not speculating here. Javelin and Simon & Schuster and Chuck Cooper and the whole team. Did you or did you not talk to Maggie Haberman and the New York Times, right?
Simple question.
Simple question.
Did you or did you not
Up or down vote? Simple question.
tee it up with Amazon to have this go live right when the story popped?
It's redonkulous to think they didn't do this, right?
Yeah, it defies logic
Defies
to think
logic.
that.
It's
I mean,
also not the way the system works.
no, and this is a pure. And let's be very clear what we're saying here. We're saying that they game this and they time this to make money. That's what this is. And again, making money off of one of President Trump's former top advisors on foreign policy matters, national security matters, that he was writing while in the White House on taxpayers' dollars, on taxpayers' time. And correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, you were in there. Do you have time to write a book? When
You don't have time. You don't have time to think, and particularly national security advisor. I mean, that is a position that it coordinates, it curates interagency, but it's also 24 hours a day, pure action. I mean, it's absurd.
Yeah,
to think of what you have to do for a book, it's ridiculous. Even the mention, it's ridiculous. They take people for fools. Now, I do want to get into the fact of, we were trying to get Sean Parnell on here. Sean Parnell is running for the Congress, thinking against Connor Lamb. He was a guy that wrote a book, and I think he was an infantry officer in the Marine Corps, right? It's a pretty good book, but because he hadn't gone through certain things, I think they took him to court and took back all his quote unquote what they felt was his ill-gotten gains, right? This is what Colonel Schaefer told us today. We're going to try to get him on here in the weeks ahead to talk about this, but the one thing that is not clear is how this got leaked. Who's actually reviewing this? President of the United States, didn't President Trump come out today and tweet that he's never seen the manuscript?
Absolutely.
Isn't this odd? If you were, and I'm not trying to criticize, I'm trying to make an observation, right? Because this thing's not going to end this Friday. You agree that we're not voting. This is not, I don't think the acquittal's happening this Friday.
Yeah, I think war room impeachment's going to be going on a little bit longer here.
And not just that, the impeachment, you're the one that branded it. The permanent impeachment party is clearly going to go on every day until November, because this is where they realized that the witness protection program they get at in Iowa ain't going to beat him, right? They're going to need some auxiliary forces.
In fact, we talked earlier in this morning's episode about polling is out, showing that Trump is essentially tied. And again, the Washington Post ABC poll saying that his numbers are way up since October when this whole process started. He's tied. There's a poll out today in Delaware. So if it's a Biden-Trump matchup in the general election, obviously Biden's going to win Delaware, home state. He wins it. He beats him by like 20 points or something. Trump is effectively tied with Sanders and Warren in the state of Delaware in a general election matchup. Think about that for a minute.
Wow.
And let's pull a whole bunch of polls out. I know. I mean, Iowa's a week from today, folks, and this was right around the corner, not getting any attention. Crazy Bernie is in first in both Iowa and New Hampshire.
And he's starting to separate from the field.
He
Joe
is.
Biden is in third in Iowa, and I think he's in third in New Hampshire. He's in back of Mayor Pete. As the centrist compromise, it's South Carolina saving him right now. If you look at all the traditional stuff of the Democratic Party, if you don't win Iowa or New Hampshire or one of them, right? There's no ticket. For a traditional guy, there's no ticket out of New Hampshire.
And keep in mind that you have Nevada between New Hampshire and South Carolina, and Nevada's a caucus. So then it goes to very much, that's a place where a Sanders and a Warren, where they're going to excel, because it's really the
Big time.
the
You gotta get it. You gotta get in
it's
and
the
work
shoe
it.
leather.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it's
Exactly.
really
You
the
gotta
work.
work it.
And also keep in mind in these process, like for Iowa and things like that, this is why it gets it's all about organization, because if your candidate fails to get over 15% in a particular precinct,
They go to the next. They go to
to
your
the
next
next
preference.
one. And so that's what everyone's working is, okay, say if you're a Cory Booker person who dropped out, where do you go to next? Or even if you're Mayor Pete, say if Mayor Pete only gets 14%, then they drop, and where do they go? Do they go to Biden? They go to Crazy Bernie or wherever these folks go to. But Democrats, I mean, they're in some real trouble right now because no one's paying any attention to their message.
Is the fix in on how this thing got leaked out? Because Biden is saying, or Bolton's guys are saying right now, they had nothing to do with it, right? That this came from the review process of the White House. And you have Eisenberg is not a guy that goes, or people close to Eisenberg, i.e. Eisenberg, or don't go to the Wall Street Journal to give backup to what his position. What do you think happened? What is happening at the National Security Council? What is happening in the building that this manuscript, which I would respectfully submit is radioactive, right? And I'm not saying, I understand what Rifkin's saying. Rifkin's saying that we're in a conundrum, that for the good of the office of the president, for the good of the Constitution, for the good of the country going forward, President Trump has to fight for separation of powers. He has to fight for executive privilege, okay? We're arguing, hey, we got nothing to worry about Bolton, right? Put Bolton out there and let him get crossed. But the manuscript itself, right, has got to be, how does it float around, or how is it out? Eisenberg doesn't see it. The president, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't tweet out, or he said to somebody, I haven't seen it, didn't know about it?
He didn't see it, and you got to believe that anyone close to him in the West Wing, if they had seen it, they would have told him. They would have informed him. We know how much the president wants to know about books. He's always very hyper-focused on books or who's come out with what project. That means that no one in the West
I'm
Wing...
not a deep state guy. But when you hear Schaefer talk about, in Schaefer's book, Colonel Schaefer's book, a third of it's redacted, right? And he was a lieutenant colonel, I think, when it came out. When you hear Parnell, I think Parnell was a Marine Corps captain, right? These are guys not at the highest level. They're not in the West Wing. How does it go on? And I'm not a deep state guy, but how's it go on to the manuscript that's got this type of radioactivity to it? Or is it at least going to change the national conversation to the fact you got senators now that feel like they're potentially locked up because the mainstream media is carpet bombing this thing? How does this float around and not come to the attention of the appropriate people?
Well, keep in mind, guess what other book Javelin served as the agent for? Do you have that handy, Steve, by any chance?
Hang on for a second.
There it is. A Warning by Anonymous. So Anonymous...
My favorite book.
Who very likely is still floating around inside the administration. Javelin client. Would that person have seen it? Was that person on the NSC?
Comey, I got it.
Comey,
you
Anonymous.
never know. You never know. Let's have Javelin and Simon & Schuster deny that. Right?
Right.
What's going on here? I don't understand. I don't understand I don't understand how this manuscript can be out there and people are not going nuts about it.
Yeah, and I mean, look, and I'm not saying this just because I absolutely detest John Bolton and Book Deal Bolton and think this whole process is just disgusting. I'm saying I don't see how this book can be published and put out there. I mean, they are all now fact witnesses in this impeachment trial. Javelin are fact witnesses. Simon & Schuster are fact witnesses. The whole NSC, we've seen everything they've done here, from the so-called whistleblower to the second whistleblower, everything they've done, the complete joke that Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman is, the fact that his brother is the deputy counsel. This is a freaking snake pit.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, just so we contextualize this, they sit there and they talk about they got overwhelming evidence, However, every night on cable TV, they said, we got to have witnesses, we have to have witnesses. When it comes down to the end of Pericles of Athens, Schmidt finishes his total rap, right? When it's all done and they're about to now transfer over to President Trump, finally gets a defense after years of taking incoming. St. Lev Parnas, you start getting the audio from the 4 hours of national TV, 2 hours he had on Rachel Maddow, 2 hours he had on AC 360 and Anderson Cooper, and then you get this on Sunday night. You get the Friday night dump on him, so that drives the Saturday news cycle and tries to Bigfoot their opening argument, right? Because now we got an audio of the president, and they also say today there's many more audios to come. He's got lots of audios, right? Then you come with this. This shows you it's an organized effort. We're not conspiracy theory guys. We don't have a tinfoil hat on. But this is my point, and I appreciate Rifkin and the Constitution, and yes, that's a higher priority. But however, let's have a throwdown, okay? They want to call Bolton. Give him Bolton. Give him Mulvaney. Give him all the OMB guys. Throw Pompeo in as a player to be named later. Give them anybody they want. Let's start calling MSNBC. Let's get Rachel Maddow up there. Let's get Simon & Schuster. Let's get Javelin. These are all witnesses of fact. Let's talk about this. And this is not whataboutism. This is the core of what this is. And this is a concerted effort to remove a president of the United States. Let's just call it what it is. And then let the American people decide.
Absolutely. No, I mean, and that's what this is. This is a coordinated takedown effort. I mean, it's so bad here. So I'm just looking through.
Can you believe? I mean, you're a pro. You've been doing this for 25 years. Did you ever in your life think we get to this situation?
No, because it's every possible rule of the road, every possible respect for any of the institutions that are out there have been completely destroyed by Democrats and their obsession, the maniacal obsession.
And the media.
And
it's
the media.
them. It's the Morning Joe crash. Understand? It's not Trump's people that have set fire to these institutions. It's not Trump's people that have been all over this. As Rifkin said, they have trampled on the Constitution.
And they've been willing to sacrifice their own to do it. They are.
Let's talk about Joe Biden.
So let's talk about Joe and where's Hunter. So here's the thing that remember when we had the pollsters on from the Super PAC and we're in the campaign and we're talking to them about some of the polling.
Mm-hmm.
This is all hurting Joe Biden in a big way because when people hear about Burisma, when they hear about Hunter, they hear about the corruption. How's this guy making $83,000 a month to do nothing?
Pam Bondi laid it up. That's more than an American family makes $55,000 a month. A family of four, two incomes, making $55,000 in this guy who's not qualified to do anything, a drug addict, right? Multiple-time drug addict, making $83,000 a month.
Yeah, but this hurts Joe Biden because when people see that, they think of the swamp. They're like, man, that's right. So you have Crazy Bernie is surging. He's going to win Iowa, probably going to win New Hampshire as well. People are looking at Joe Biden like, do we really want to go back to that?
Well, this is the thing. One of the reasons he's drafting down in places like Iowa, in New Hampshire, because those are states that are not like some of the bigger states like Illinois or Florida or New York, where people have a little more jaundiced view of the world in politics. That is one of the reasons the presidential campaign starts with that retail politics of places like Iowa and places like New Hampshire and places like South Carolina, where you got to go touch and feel. It's not huge TV markets. You actually have to get it done. That's where something like, drain the swamp or crony capitalism and corruption is a big deal. Because Iowa nice and the flinty Yankees up in New Hampshire and these kind of very practical Southerners in South Carolina, this is a big deal for them.
It is. And the other thing, too, some other things here. Katie Tur from MSNBC today was hammering Joe Biden, saying he's the only candidate in this run-up. Again, it's a week from today. Like, we are that close.
We're there, folks.
Like, we're there. Like, people are doing their final ad of the caucus. I mean, we are right there. Joe Biden's the only candidate not turning out crowds.
No, she's actually in Iowa reporting live
Yes.
for MSNBC. And remember, she's a Trump hater. She's no Trump fan. Right? She's calling it like it is. There's no energy in that campaign, but they were prepared to sacrifice him, no doubt.
Yeah. I mean, when they filed those 2 articles of impeachment, they made a conscious decision to throw the candidacy of Joe Biden under the bus.
Okay, we're going to get back into the war room and watch the rest of this. I want to tee up people for tomorrow. It started a little academically today, but you think that's still to hold the room and to hold the senators, McConnell with all this other madness going on with Bolton, try to hold the room, start with that. Do you think they wrap up today, or do you think they're going to go into tomorrow and use some of the timing and use the clock of the 24 hours we said they should have used?
So more than likely, they're probably going to wrap it up today, but there is a chance, go into the evening, there is a chance they could come back tomorrow. We still haven't seen Dershowitz,
No,
right?
Dershowitz got an hour or two, I think.
So, and so that might be a closer.
You don't want to do Dershowitz too late at night.
No.
You could have some of these 70 and 80-year-old senators not make it through that.
Right.
And guys have not been in a lecture at Harvard Law School in a while.
Right. And also, too, I mean, Dershowitz has got to get over to the CNN studios or, whatever interview that he's going to do here. But I do think it's important that they the Trump team close up tomorrow, if it goes till tomorrow, essentially doing a refresher of what they did on Saturday. Wash, rinse, repeat. It was excellent. It was methodical. The video montages were great. Go back and drive that into people's skulls that President Trump did nothing wrong.
In the 30 seconds, the Biden part of this, they start with Pam Bondi, and then they brought in...
now they're on to Eric Hirschman, who's part of the Kasowitz law firm that came on board.
He's a killer.
He's a killer. And so we're in here. We've seen they've played the Council on Foreign Relations video multiple times. That's the one where Joe Biden said, we're going to get the son of a you-know-what. And they're taking these guys to the cleaners right now. So this is, if you're Joe or Where's Hunter, you're probably not in a good mood right now.
Okay, warroom.org. I think we did 5 hours of broadcasting. They did the show at 9 o'clock this morning, then followed it by the War Room Pandemic, and then had 2 hours of Vox Populi, finished with our evening show just for our broadcasting. Every day of the week will be on 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. with impeachment. Then we'll follow that with Pandemic, a bunch of great guests talking about this horrific situation in China that's spreading throughout the world. And then at 5 o'clock every night this week, we're going to have an evening show to kind of summarize where we are. Stephen K. Bannon, Jason Miller. Episode 137. We will see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.